If you're switching from Cycles to Octane Blender, you're gonna hit a wall looking for this one node, the color ramp. Most people search for the word color ramp and they get completely nothing. They think Octane is missing the feature or that it's just way too complicated for Octane. But the truth is, Octane's version does not replace the color ramp. It actually gives you a little bit more control than the Cycles node would. I've spent the past 6 years learning Blender Octane and sharing everything out on this YouTube channel. So if this is something you're interested, consider hitting the subscribe button. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly where the color ramp lives inside of Blender Octane. Well, first thing first, we don't call it a color ramp, it's the gradient map node. We will cover how it's gonna flip your workflow completely differently from Cycles, and I will show you some advanced tips that you can do with the gradient map texture node inside of Octane. Enough of this jibber jabber, let's get into the video. All right, so the first thing when we look inside of here, we've got our Cycles node here. This is our Cycles. Now I got it connected in here and we see we've got, basically everybody knows the color. Now the one thing you're gonna notice that's completely different here, we have this factor slot down here too, which you can also go between our colors here. Now if we jump over to Octane, and look at our gradient map, again, it's not called a color ramp, it's called a gradient map node there. You can clearly see we don't have that factor slot. And matter of fact, we've got a lot more inputs on this side. So again, the main thing is that Cycles locks a lot of the stuff out for you. So like it basically keeps it nice and simple. I appreciate it when I first started learning Octane. And again, I use that analogy that Cycles is, or Octane is like a 747 jumbo jet. You got buttons and switches in everywhere. And then Cycles is more like the little Cessna plane, great, you know, very simple controls, very simple readout and stuff like that. So we have our sliders. We've got our RGB mode here, color mode there. We've also got our linear, all of our different types of space, you know, consistent, B-spline, linear, ease in, and right. Then we can add in and more points, with more points. We can flip, distribute slots evenly, eyedropper, or just reset the color ramp altogether. Now, if we go back over to Octane and look at the Octane version. Now, of Octane here, we still have our plus minuses to add in our points. We've got the same thing here, flip, easy stops, distribute stops. We've got our RGB color modes the same. And then we also got our linear, ease, E-spline consistent, okay? So that's all pretty much the same. The only thing that gets a little bit more different is once we start getting into, we got interpretation mode, interpolation type, sorry. We've got the same type of things that we've had up here. And then we also got color space, physical, and I have no idea what it is. I've never in my life. I've always just kept it on normal, okay? Now you did notice once I added all these extra points in, look at all the extra value points and position points that we've added here. You're thinking like, well, what's going on when I do that, right? Now, if we go back quickly over to Cycles here, we don't have that. When I start adding in notes, we notice nothing really changes. We can still position of each one of our nodes here, but we don't have those extra populating down on the bottom. What is happening here? Octane is giving us access to a little bit more data or a more controllability than what it is in Cycles. So for example, we have our start value, which is right here, and we have our end value. And then the value 1 and 2 and 3, these pins that populate every time that come in, we're basically having access to those pins as far as node inputs and outputs. And that gives us a little bit more freedom when we start doing things procedurally. And I'm going to dive into the powers of using the Octane gradient map node. So let's take a look at it more deep. So the first thing, let me quickly just reset this back. So we've still got our normal default, which we can do normal things, right? If I come in here, and we can just add in an RGB node, right? RGB color. I can put this in here. Boom, give us a color there, standard way, right? We got our color slot. Come and pop that open, add in a color, and color ramp, right? Then I can also, for example, I'm gonna take a noise texture. I'm gonna add a noise texture in here. I come down here to noise texture, pop that open there, and that is noise texture. I'm gonna grab the contrast, crank that up to 50, and we can play with the gamma. There it is. So we've got some noise being pumped, okay? This is really cool. So if I take this color slot here, and it's orange, right? This RGB node. I'm going to plug this into the start. And if we come in here, we don't really see anything happening. Let's plug this into volume 1. Oh, okay. Well, that kind of added, they replaced the blue or the green, right? I take the same orange and put it into volume 2. Now it replaced the blue. So let's actually just take this and make it white. You can kind of see what's happening there. Like this volume right here, this is this value right here. So if I wanted to replace that, boom, now I can replace that and basically happening, right? I still got my green, but look at the white. Now, if I add this slight, now you can see what's happening. We've got the white still and we've got the green. Really crazy. Like I said, it's very powerful what we can actually do here. And it's just vice versa. If I take this and I grab the blue, it leaves that little fringe of white, okay? So that's just a quick little intro on what with that. Now, things get really crazy where if I unplug this, you notice we have position 1 and position 2. What does this mean in position 2? Well, I'm just going to grab, it's called a gradient color. And this is just what we use for a value. Okay, I'm just going to basically, and what I want to do is let's plug this into position. And actually, I can't do that. That's blue. So I need value, float value. Grab a float value because I'm going to go ahead and drag that into. And if I grab that, you see what's happening as I move this value, one value. That, see what's happening? We take this away. And if I go like this, we're doing the exact same thing. This position just allows us to actually control this position by data. So here's, I'm doing the exact same thing. Even though you don't physically see that moving, it's basically moving it automatically, right? So I can keyframe this value right here and control this slider position procedurally, the same that I could do right here, but I could just do it node-wise, right? So this, again, procedural freedom. It's just giving you more control, basically. That's all this, okay? And the more pins I add, now we've added another pin. Here's pin number 3. Now I'm 3 using data. So that's what that basically is there. And one other thing that's really nice and really cool about this node that it's really powerful, we can actually put texture inside of it, not just noise patterns. We can, for example, let's take this noise pattern and put it in 1. As a matter of fact, let's get another pattern, duplicate another pattern. I'm going to change chip, put this into the start value. Okay, there we go, value chips. Now you can see we've got this noise, and then we've also got this noise over the top. So you really see how crazy we can get with. Now, we did lose our color. I think start value, maybe if we change the start value in red here, that in start, I'm just going crazy to show you like what I've never really gone this and used all of these functions, but they are there. Another thing that's really powerful that I will quickly show you is if we add in a random color. And if I plug this random color texture input, if we zoom out, you're going to notice I got all these cubes that I've alt duplicate. You see if I got all these different cubes here. And like, for example, if I grab this one and hit alt duplicate, alt, you see what's happening? We're getting a slight variation in difference on one. And then again, let's really change it up and I can make this noise pattern. So we know we got the colors. We can do the colors. Start value. Let's go start value and in value. All right, start value and in value. So now if I alt duplicate, alt Z, still getting some duplication, right? There is a way though. If I wonder if I put this on value 1, this on value 2, and now let's take one of these. Now it's actually alt duplicating between the two patterns. See that? It's alt duplicating between the patterns. So like if you, for example, if you have a rock texture, you can have one rock texture and one rock texture in the other one. And as you alt duplicate the rocks, they're all going to have a slightly variant. So again, that is very, very powerful as far as proceduralism really get to control these. And like, I'm just scratching the surface of what you can probably do with this. If we change it to constant, go. Again, we can change that to step linear. All right. And then we also got up here, we can still change this stuff. So if this node breakdown is helping you out, consider hitting that subscribe button. All right. So here was the short lesson. To make dynamic gradients, plug textures into those start values and those in values, and then also put some textures or some map nodes inside of those value pins to move those around procedurally, which is going to give you 100% fully procedural freedom. But what about when we need to use gradients to clamp those masks? Or for example, when we need something for is like fire or, volumetric stuff, we actually have a separate node for that too. Let's look at that next. All right, so again, like using it for clamping stuff here, it's very simple and easy. It's just like any other thing. We'll just drop that in between here. And for example, I want to maybe, crunch some of these values down on this here. So what I typically do is just go maybe like 0.49. And then we can go maybe just grab this one over and just start dragging it like that. And I just zoom in here really close. 0.49, we could just go type this in here, go 0.5, and then boom, you can get some contrast pumped out of there. Very simple, very easy. We can even change this to contrast, which doesn't really make a difference, but boom, there is it the same way, just trying to crunch those values, which everybody kind of tends to use it for, which I use it all the time. But there's something different if we were going to use, like, for example, fire, or we're building out like a VDB that has fire and stuff like that. We wouldn't use the same gradient. So now I've got this VDB inside of here, and you can clearly, like, I can use the scattering here and stuff to change the colors. But if I wanted to use like a gradient map or something, especially if you had like fire and things like that going on, what I could do is come in here and do my normal gradient map. You can come in here and go to gradient map, and I can load that in, and you'll see here that I can still plug it into these texture slots and it'll work fine because these are texture slots. But you'll see here we have this scattering ramp here. If I plug this into here, it does not work. It won't work in that. If I come back here, again, I can change the color here. And now you can see that it's starting to work there. We're getting some green here. So that's where I say we have special color ramps that are more optimized for using with volumes and fires and things like that. And if you come here, you can literally just pop one out quickly by hitting this button here. And this one right here, volume gradient. It's the same thing, a volume gradient map. Again, we can do all of the same little controls, except we don't have all of those controls there because this only works with color value. It doesn't allow you to input any type of texture value. You notice that our color slots here is green. This one is only blue and white, so it does not work that way. But I can take this into the ramp here, and you can already see that it's acting. It's already activating here. And if I go ahead again, change this color up here. Now again, it's a little bit hot here, so we're gonna have to, I think, just come down here and pull this down. There we go. So now we've got a little bit of blue. And if we come in here, maybe change this to some type of other color here. Volume gradient will be more efficient. And actually it won't be. This is the only option you have because it's made exactly for this. And whoops, there we go. So that's how we would use the volume gradient node. Switching your node logic from Cycles to Octane isn't about learning a brand new software. It's just about seeing how Octane breaks settings out into open pins so that you can use them for complex textures. Like I always say, using Cycles is like flying a little Cessna plane. Everything's nice and simple. You jump into Octane, it's like a 747. You got knobs and buttons and switches everywhere. But once you master this gradient texture, you're gonna unlock a massive part of material workflow inside of Octane and also inside of Cycles. If you're curious about more nodes inside of Octane, take a look at this next texture displacement node, which is not in Cycles, but we do have a special node inside of Octane. And if you want to fix your node setups alongside hundreds of other artists just like you, take a look down below our Blender Octane community, free 7-day trial for those of you guys who see this video. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.